Well, hey everyone, and this is the last episode of the season, so I'm Brad. Nailed it!
I'm Brandon.
15 times the
got
charm.
It right this time.
How about that?
I mean, we just did it just to ruffle your feathers.
How we doing, boys? Good to see you.
Finally.
Oh, it's good to see you guys
Finally.
and gals.
Doing well. How about you guys?
Yes, you're a little bit of a cliffhanger point there, Brian. There's some ladies in the house that we're going to introduce in just a few minutes. Guys, I'm not sure if you've had the chance to fully listen to our most recent episode with Charles Johnson, to go through and listen to one of the most powerful conversations I've ever been a part of.
Incredible. Yeah, his insight was
fantastic.
So
Fantastic.
I mean, I think I've listened to it 3 times now in its entirety. It's just really special episode, and I'm glad we could meet him and have his support, and to support what he's doing is incredible.
Yeah, it's like one of those things I've been messaging him on the side outside our group, just like, yo, oh my God, I took this jewel away from you. Oh my God, I took this power message away from you. Fantastic.
The outreach has been incredible.
Fantastic. Wow.
T-shirts too.
That's right. I'm rocking my 4 Cheer 4 Moms shirt here for the last episode. A little love to Charles.
Nice.
So if you didn't get a chance to listen to our most recent conversation on racial injustice and inspiring change with Charles Johnson, highly recommend that you click pause on this one, take an hour and 46 minutes of your life to go listen to that one, because it's incredible. And that's going to be a perfect segue to our finale of season 1, which frankly, I couldn't be more excited about. But guys, it's our last episode. Like, that's insane, isn't it? That we're already at the end of season 1.
I can't believe it. Where did the time go? I can't believe we've recorded all these episodes and connected with all these listeners. I mean, it feels like we just started this.
Yeah.
Literally, that's how this started. Like, it started literally from a dream, and now, like, we have this fully, like, just, we got people still contacting us every day about just everything and anything. So
it's awesome to be
kudos to you guys, number one.
Community too. Like, we kind of joined it. It already existed, and obviously we're all part of it, but you know, to just join this bigger community and just see the love and support from all of our listeners, it's just something that I never knew it could be this big or, you know, powerful in our lives. So, you know, thanks for listening, and God, let's do this season finale.
Yeah, we got a great one in store for you. So as we've said, this is the end of season 1, but don't worry, we're not going anywhere. Season 2 is right around the corner. We're just taking a little bit of a break. Fellas, what's the plans for the off season here? Like baseball.
Yeah, I mean, we're in Smashville
baseball
right now. Everybody listening probably thinks I go on vacation with my wife all the time, since we're in Hilton Head for the Father Sam episode. But no, Connecticut's beautiful this time of year, so I think we're going to spend a lot of time, with the kids and go to the beach and enjoy each other.
Beautiful.
What about you guys?
Ooh, nice. Baseball, go Blue Jays. Football, preseason. Maybe hang out with some family. Maybe I don't know. Maybe we'll run into you guys.
Maybe golf with you this Sunday. We'll see.
Maybe.
No, I agree. We'll take about 2 months off of recording, but for listeners, we're still going to be heavily engaged on our social channels, on emails. We're going to take this as an opportunity to join other podcasts. We've been reached out to by other similar, especially moms podcasts that would like to have us on for a dad perspective. So you'll still hear these 3 sultry voices on other airwaves over the next coming weeks and months until we join you back for season 2. But I honestly don't think there's a more fitting way for us to end this incredible first season of Guys and Grief than the episode that we're about to do. Guys, if we rewind the clock back to November when we first started having these conversations, the first people that I spoke to are essentially the 5 other faces that I'm staring at right now. And, none of us would be hosting this or a part of this community if it wasn't for our incredible spouses. This wouldn't be possible. And, we recognize that many of our listeners are women. Many of our followers and our messages that we receive on social and email are women. Many of our conversations and topics that we cover off with guests are about trying to sustain a healthy marriage, how to be a supportive spouse. And so we thought this would be an amazing opportunity to close out season 1 with a conversation with our incredible wives. And so I am honored to introduce Brian's wife, Lindsie, Brandon's wife, Joellen, and my wife, Jessica. Hi, ladies.
Welcome.
Hi.
Woo!
Yeah, it's good to have you on.
Good to be here.
We're so excited to have you, ladies. Thank you for your vulnerability and bravery in doing this. I know this has been a long time coming.
Yeah.
We've talked about this one for a while, and the emotional waves of doing this and being vulnerable, and many of the times we've talked about it has butted right up to one of our anniversaries of either a birth date or a lost date or a special date. And we have a whole episode where we talk about anniversaries and the difficulty of that. So proud that we've pivoted in those moments, but we're here now and so excited to have this conversation with you all. What we got to find out is who's your dad and what does he do? So that's a really important part of this freaking thing. Joellen, my incredible sister, do you want to introduce yourself? Where you're from, what you do, all that fun stuff?
Sure. I'm Joellen. I'm Brad's sister and Brandon's wife. Lucky him. I'm
Which one?
Story's mom and Gabby's mom.
Heck yeah.
Gabby is 6, and Story just celebrated her 4th heavenly birthday on Friday. I'm sure you know all about Story.
Birthday story.
And Joellen, what do you do professionally?
I'm an assistant principal. I worked at a charter school for 17 years. So I've been there, I feel like, my whole adult life.
And who's your shittiest employee?
Right next to me in the box. Next to me. And
You're on mute, Brandon.
Ready for the draft.
Yeah, that's right. Brandon, you're on mute, by the way, bud. There you go.
I'm better now. Sorry, I was trying to be quiet. We're in the same household.
She's got you on lockdown.
Goes.
That's what it is. She's got you well trained. Mute yourself.
Listen here. Hush it, okay? I did. I muted myself immediately. I'm like, you know what? Let me be quiet while the boss is speaking.
Jessica, do you want to do the same?
Sure. Hi, I'm Jessica. I am Brad's wife and Ashton's mom and Beckham's mom and Ariana's mom. I am a stay-at-home mom. Lots of mom in here. That's
previous life
me.
Before stay-at-home mom.
Previous life, I was a Disney princess and Broadway musical theater actress in New York City, and now we're doing the mom thing.
Love it. Yes, everybody. I don't know if I married Cinderella. That's pretty awesome. Can't believe it took me 15 episodes to drop that gem. I did. Seriously. She clearly has poor taste in men, but aside from that, all good. And certainly, last but not least, Lindsie.
Hi, I'm Lindsie. I am married to this handsome man right here, and I am the mother of 2, Colin, our first, Austin, our beautiful, beautiful baby boy who passed away, and Grace and Evie, our rainbow babies. And I'm a speech pathologist, and I work with amazing, amazing young adults, 18 to 22 years old. They're so cool. And recently finished my doctorate.
Dr. Lindsie.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad it's over.
Clearly much smarter than me, too, if that's not evident.
But
you did go to Cornell, so we'll give you a little bit of intelligence, Brian.
Yeah.
Well, ladies, we are so honored to have you here. I think this conversation is going to be incredibly powerful. And fellas, I'll kick off with the first question here, and then we can just keep it really fluid. But this is almost going to be a little bit kind of like a episode full of G&G Q&As, or like a nobody prepares you for type of thing, where we just cover off a bunch of topics that we think are really relevant, that I'm saying this for the listeners, that are relevant for the relationship dynamic of husband and wife through this, and supporting your spouse, and the questions that you wish you could have asked your wife, or you wish you ladies you could ask your husband. And we're putting ourselves out here in full vulnerable aspect, right? Where we're hoping that we'll model the behavior and the things that are leading to healthy marriages and being healthy parents to living children and to our lost children. And we have not prepped for this conversation as far as like what we're planning on saying. So this is going to be raw and real. But we felt like that was the most important way to do this too. So let's jump in. Ladies, what you've gone through was unbelievably traumatic. And obviously from a male's perspective, the grieving loss and heavy heart is very real. The physical and emotional toil on you all as women, obviously, is a whole other dimension. We could spend hours talking about that piece, but recognizing the context of Guys and Grief, talk to us a little bit about what it was like going through grief and your loss and looking to your right or left and seeing Brad, Brian, or Brandon, seeing your husband grieving, and the pros and cons and the things where, you know, either where we were helpful or where you felt unheard, or, you know, how you were trying to navigate your own grief simultaneously. What was that like, trying to be a supportive spouse while you were also going through grief? Table's open. Jess, go for it.
So I'll be the first to say that I couldn't support anybody. I couldn't support myself, and I definitely couldn't support you, Brad. I couldn't begin to hold myself up or hold anybody else up. It was trying to keep swimming and trying to stay above water. And that was something that I know was so hard for you because you needed support and I couldn't give it to you. And that I felt so guilty about that. I still feel guilty about that. But through therapy and through, you know, learning more about myself, I've realized that it was all I could do. And you just go day to day and try and keep living literally for a while. And then you realize that your spouse needs you as well. And, you know, I feel like I support you more now, but I certainly at the time and for a long time had nothing left to give to you at the end of the day. And that's wasn't fair to you, but I think that's realistic. And I think that's something that probably most wives feel, and most husbands feel unsupported, and most wives feel empty.
Great points.
Yeah, I mean, that was real. I appreciate you sharing that. You know, because I think we talk a lot about on the podcast where a lot of guys feel like they want to take the like pain of the grief, and you know, I think there's lots of different personalities of people listening, but I think that's very honest. I appreciate you sharing that. You know, so it's hard to, you know, give support when you're in so much pain.
I can go next.
Yeah.
After Story died, I, for the life of me, could not understand why Brandon wasn't like grieving like I was. Like, it made no sense to me. I didn't understand why he could like make it through a sentence, why he could cook dinner, why he could do the laundry, why he could communicate with other people. Like, there was some times where I was able to do that, but then there was like times where we'd put Gabby to bed and I'm sobbing and I couldn't tell you exactly why at that moment, but I was expecting him to be doing the same. And so I'm like, I'm crying and I want you to be crying too. And I want you to be wanting to go up to bed and cry too. And I want you to be holding her teddy bear and crying too. And it didn't make any sense to me why. It almost felt to me like he was just moving on with life. But, you know, now 4 years later, even 4 or 5 months later, it became more clear that was just a coping mechanism, and he was as devastated as I was. But in that first 6-8 weeks, I was like, I don't effing understand. Like, why am I sitting here, can barely get myself off the couch every night, and you're just sitting here till 2-3 o'clock in the morning watching shows? Like, I don't get it. And so I had a really hard time with that. And I mean, it makes much more sense to me now, and we're able to talk about that now. But in that moment, it was like, I expected him to match my energy on all of that emotion, and he just wasn't there. But looking back at it, I don't think we would have made it through had we both been like
Exactly.
like hiding in the closet crying, like we would never have made it through. So it took both of us.
Did you guys talk about that at all?
Yeah, and it's kind of different because well, we have like it's different because that was a different part because normally me and Joellen are so much on the same page quite a bit. So like for that to be like a separation for us, like we spoke about that maybe a couple of years ago. Like, you know, I wasn't up just watching TV. Like there are some moments I'm sitting with just the TV on, but I'm looking at, you know, our globe of a story and I'm gonna have my own like moment, like conversation, so on and so forth to kind of, you know, vent and get this off. Then like we said in a previous podcast, you know, I didn't have to, but I decided to, you know, put that protective gear on and I'll make sure the house is good. You make sure everyone's fed in the house, homework's done, so on and so forth, you know, and
I called
so on and so forth. Brad, you got me again, but you did. But moving forward with that, you know, I just want to be the protector of the household, and that's where, you know, I felt the most comfortable.
Lindsie, I'd love your
role,
perspective here too, because then I think
never
we
heard
can
that
add on to sort of the guy's perspective of that.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I can relate a lot to you all talking about kind of, you know, grieving in different ways, and thinking about another piece of that is that, you know, Brian and I, we definitely grieved in our own way, but some ways were very similar. And I think one of the ways that we were super similar in our grief was the emotions that we felt were self-directed. Like the anger, it was self-directed. It was self-loathing. It was the guilt was I don't deserve to live, right, when my baby is dead. That it was directed at ourselves. And so I would blame myself and Brian blamed himself. And in seeing that, you know, when he would express himself, which was a beautiful thing to, you know, to be open and communicate and be vulnerable and really helped us get through it. But also to see that, you know, I would think to myself, like, I just lost my baby and, you know, am I going to lose him too? And, you know, so that was the fear of, you know, what could this grief take away, you know, something even more than I've already lost. So that was challenging.
You all bring up such amazing points. We've heard a lot from guests on this. Obviously, the reason we start with this conversation of this topic is because it resonates so much. And one thing that we've kind of talked about a little bit on the pod, but even offline, for those of you that don't know, like Brandon, Brian, and I sit and we talk for like an hour and a half after every recording, and we just chit chat on this stuff. And one thing that I think we've all collectively found is that it's such an interesting dynamic of the world where men and women experience everything in the world from a different perspective as a generalization, right? The way we think about, you know, sports or having children in the first place, or, you know, what's important in our life. Like we just experience the world in a very different way. And that is socially acceptable and very socially norm. For some reason, though, when it comes to this grief shit, we feel like we should be doing it the exact same way. And we as men wonder, why are you ladies doing it the way that you are? And ladies, you know, to your points that you were saying, Joe, very honestly, like, why isn't Brandon sobbing in the corner right now? And for some reason, we just sort of generally expect that our spouse is doing the same thing, or they should be doing that. And isn't that an unreasonable expectation? Because we don't expect that of each other in any other sense of how we experience the world, right?
It's a great
open
point.
question, open comment.
Totally. I mean, I think that in those moments, though, you can't even see. All you see is what you're feeling.
Yep.
So it's so hard to even begin to see that someone else could see it differently. Like there's just no
Great
room
point.
for that in the moment. There's no, at least for me, I had no more space to fill with anything other than what I was feeling. So I didn't have the space to figure out what was going on with you, because Joe, I feel the same way. I had that same response of like, what is going on? You're just going to work and laughing with your colleagues and good for you, but I'm down here sobbing and trying to take care of a 2-year-old. And you know, that's tough, but I think that's what most people end up going through. You just don't understand each other's grieving process when you're like in the deep, deep throes of it.
Great point.
Also, I don't know. That made me just think of two different things. One is like all of our other aspects of our life are like a choice. Like I choose to love sports. Brandon chooses to love sports, and collectively we love sports. And I choose to hate the gym, and Brandon sometimes pretend to like the gym, but we mostly hate the gym. Like
we collectively hate the gym.
Collectively hate the gym. Like I'd rather not go to the gym. This is like forced on us, and then now we both have to be like, oh, we're doing this right now. Like right now the baby's dead, and we have to figure out each other with that. And then my other thought about it was just like, I don't know, like people die, obviously, but like people that are like in your household don't die when you're 30, 40 years old. So there's no, like when you're older or I don't know, like God willing, years down the line, one of us loses a parent, like there's going to be different perspectives of that grief, but like to have that death, like to be forced to grieve in this like thrust upon way in it with such a close, like intimate relationship is just stuff that nobody can even like help you with because it just doesn't happen to people, most people.
It's a great, I hadn't thought about it that way. Good point. Go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, that's really good. And another point was brought up that I think is interesting. How did you women feel like when we went back to work? And, I know it's different for kind of different jobs and what people do, but in general, like, what did you think when we went back to work and you saw us interacting with people that maybe wasn't like grieving and sadness? Like, was there a part of you that kind of wishes we didn't, or like talk a little bit about that?
Go ahead, Joe. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I feel like Brandon and I are probably a little bit different than everybody else. We work at the same school. And so obviously the entire student body knew that I was 9 months pregnant. Mm-hmm. All 500 students and staff knew that I had worked my last day and that 3 days from now we'd bring home a baby. And like everyone knew that. So I never went back to school the rest of that school year. But a while later, Brandon did. I don't really remember when. And I felt like I was kind of
it was like 3 weeks
okay with that.
After.
I knew we had to, there's no paternity leave, no maternity leave when you don't bring home a baby. Like you're just kind of on your own time. And our employer, our school was so generous and the staff was so generous in giving us days and what we needed. But, he needed to go back. But I don't know if it's just that we work in such like a female dominated field also, that I knew that him going back to work would actually be like super emotional for him, because everybody at work is going to be asking, like all the teachers, the kids don't know, like they don't know that it's weird to be like, so did you have your baby? Like,
sure.
But I remember like I felt like I was ready for it. And then those couple days leading up to him leaving, where I was just going to be home all day by myself, I was like freaked out. Like, you can't leave me. What am I going to do all day? But I also, knowing that we worked together, I didn't feel like he drove out of the driveway and got to like, just go put this in a box for a little bit and like go to like real life. Because like real life for us is everyone knowing about everything we do. So for us, it was a little bit different than probably for Lindsie and Jess.
Yeah, I'll say that for Brad working in our home, we were during COVID, so he was working upstairs. And at the time we were in Connecticut, so he was working downstairs. Yeah. And I could hear every conversation. I could hear him laughing and trying to just, go on with colleagues and just be normal. And that was super hard for me. I will say that I resented that at times because I didn't get that release. I didn't get that space of trying to escape and go to a place and just try and be Jessica, or even just be Ashton's mom or be anything else. I was just right in it. And he had that Not that going to work isn't easier, because I can guarantee that it's not, but him having those moments of normalcy for me, it was really tough because I could hear it. It was just right there. And, you know, it was not long when he went back to work. You know, we lost Beckham on a Thursday. He went back to work on Monday. So like it was very soon, and it was in our home, and it was hard. It was hard to listen to and I can't imagine how hard it was for him to just carry on and act like everything was okay.
No, you're totally right.
But at the same time, it was really hard to hear.
In doing what I do, for those who don't know, I'm in recruiting. I lead HR recruiting for a large real estate company. You know, what we're doing, and Brian, you're in sales too, right? Like you have to put on the personality. You're trying to attract people to come and want to work for your employer. So my heart was unbelievably heavy, but I've mentioned this on the pod. Like I knew I was having these conversations, and literally on the opposite side of the door was my grieving wife. And that heaviness was super weighed on my heart. But it was one of those decision points of where what I can do right now is pour myself into my work. You know, I'm the sole provider for our family financially. The best thing that I can try to do is put on a brave face and try to, you know, as Brandon says, keep the house moving forward, keep it moving.
Yeah. Thank God you were able to do that.
Yeah, but I'm not did that well. It's a good point. Lynn, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I was fortunate in the sense that we were fortunate in the sense that that Brian doesn't have like being fully commission. He's fully commission based, and so he doesn't have hours that he has to report into work. So he was able to take some time, and we were able to be together. And I think we were fortunate in having that time.
It wasn't like 9 to 5. I'm gone.
Right.
Yeah.
If I was sad, I'd just go home, you know, or if she was sad,
right,
you know.
Yeah, and at the time, but I know that was also super stressful because when he doesn't have hours, if he's not working, being all commission.
Good point.
Did you feel that way at the time?
Yeah,
like when I was leaving.
When you were leaving at the time at first. And I had been home with the boys as well at the time. So I didn't have a job I was going back to. I was home, and I was scared. I was scared. I was scared to be alone. I was in such a dark place that, I didn't know where my mind was going to go once he was gone. I knew no matter what, I was going to keep going for my living son. I always knew that. At the end of the day, I was not going to do anything because he needed me, and I was going to be there. But it was still a really, really intensely dark place to be in. And so when you went back, I think it was, really just tough thinking that. And I don't know if this is going to make sense, but like thinking you were going to this place that was like a little bit lighter, and I was still just feeling heaviness just every second.
100%. I felt that in my own house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Joe?
I mean, I felt this strongly about Gabby, but I also felt it about Brandon, that since Story died, now anybody's up for grabs. Like now everyone's going to die. So
yes, everyone's going to die.
Brandon goes to work, Brandon's going to die. And like, nobody's safe unless they're like in our house with us. And like, so I had a hard time with that for years. Like I eased up on that more. Like, I let Brandon out the house once in a while.
Not me. Everybody's locked down here.
That's why we're in separate rooms. But with Gabby, I mean, I still like, there's still times where mom and dad are like, let me take Gabby down to Brad and Jess's and she can hang out with Ash. And I'm like, that's 3 hours in a car. What, I don't know. And I'm like, still like, if Story can die, Gabby can die. And I can like, I'm getting better with it. But, when Brandon went back to work, I had a hard time with that. Like that first year, I thought like, we're all going down.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We're on vacation in Nashville right now. And the second we got on the plane and it took off, I was like, what did I do? The plane came down. I the whole family's going to die, you know.
Second, there's turbulence. You're just like, oh my God.
Wow.
Jeez.
Yep.
I got I think this is a great segue into kind of our next point of, we're talking about the immediate time after our losses and how difficult it was to support, your spouse. What did you guys do as a couple and as women to sort of get out of that, sadness, or, was it, we talk a lot about communication. Was it something like that? Or what experiences and generalities did you have that helped get out of sort of the different grieving emotions? Do you want to start?
Sure.
Go, Lynn.
For myself, I knew right away that I was going to have to work really hard and really consciously on my healing if I was going to, continue to live. And so I knew that I needed help, and I knew that I wasn't going to be able to do this on my own. And so I really seeked out, I questioned everything and seeked out everything. I went to like a ghost church, and there were what do you call it? Not a mediator.
Medium.
A medium.
Like
just searching for my son, right? And but in finding, different ways to try and heal, I did find things that I really connected with. And one of them was journaling, writing, reading, like everything. And I would read something and then I would write and respond to it. And once my thoughts were looping, I would have the same thought. And if I just kept it in my head, it would get bigger and bigger and bigger. And so if I put it down on paper, it would help to control the thoughts and kind of like bring me back to a center. And so that was really helpful.
Yeah. And I thought that helped a lot with our communication too, because you were kind of, yeah.
And especially with us, like to keep our marriage together, it was like connection through communication. It was just all things communication. We had a living child, and in front of him, we didn't want to, be super open. We wanted to give him a sense of safety, right? And happiness in his life. But something that we did that I think was really, really important was every single day, even if it was at the end of the day, once, Colin was asleep, we checked in with each other, and we were totally open and totally vulnerable. And, where are you at today? This is where I'm at today. And even if it wasn't the same place, even if we weren't in the same place, we would just hear each other and not judge each other. Just like, I hear you and I'm here for you. And
it's beautiful.
But thank you.
Yeah. And
that's really hard to do. I want to applaud you guys for that first and foremost.
Yeah.
Like that's really hard to do.
I was going to say it took time too. It wasn't like, we're communicating really well right after this. Like the first 2 weeks, it was silence. Like it was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, having family members like feed us through a spoon. Like it was that like crazy. But then it gets to a point where it's like, okay, we have to communicate. And I know there's a lot of listeners that can relate to that. It's just eventually it comes to a head, and you gotta, I think, communication and sharing love and support, because I think we felt the guilt, and guilt can really, lead to a lot of other fucked up emotions. And it was really important for us to tell each other that we thought one another was a great parent. And I think, that's important.
And that, right. And we would always do that too. When I was like, I feel like the worst mother in the world, why couldn't I have saved him? And, you would be right there. And Brian was always like, you're such a great mom. Like you're so loving. You're a great person. And hearing that, would really help to bring me back I mean, I think it helped to keep my marriage together, and I know it helped to keep me
reassured.
What about you, Jess? What kind of brought you out of that sort of funk where, you and Brad could really connect again?
I will admit that I shut down pretty strongly. As much as I wanted Brad to communicate with me, I don't think I communicated with him. We did, but not probably. I will be the first to admit I did not do this well. I've been really
Nobody does.
I struggled for a very long time, and I still do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I took a lot of it on myself and would just shut down and just not. I would try to kind of just keep it all in internally, and I wouldn't tell him things that I was feeling or like triggered something that would trigger me. I wouldn't tell him. And that was not the right move. And I have learned that now, that like if I'm feeling triggered, I just tell him. And that has helped us so much. For instance, on his birthday last year, the poor guy had the worst birthday in the whole world. I had things planned. I was all excited. And then he wanted to make pizzas, and we had bought this Uni pizza oven like
Shut up,
3
Joellen.
days after Ari had. I'm telling you, 3 days after Ari died, we bought this pizza oven in the middle of the night.
And there was
this very expensive pizza oven. It was literally like the middle of the night on Black Friday.
I bought something to make pizza in the future.
Yeah.
He totally bought.
And so we bought this pizza oven. We hadn't used it yet. Now it's like May, and we're going to use this pizza oven. And as soon as he said pizzas, I was like, shit, we're going to have to use that stupid oven. And I don't even want to get it out because it had an aura about it that I was not a fan of. And so we are going to make these pizzas, and it was a fucking disaster. And I completely ruined his birthday. And I didn't say anything about the stupid pizza oven can go to hell because it's triggering me and making me think about our dead children. I didn't say that. I just let it pretend to be me making a scene where it was completely about we bought this 3 days after our baby died, and I just don't want to ever look at it again.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of that in this grieving process where if you're not open and communicating and saying this is triggering me, then your husband's you're not a mind reader. You can't know everything that's triggering, and it might trigger me. And he had no idea that had any, it was about pizza. I had a nervous breakdown at Joellen and Brandon's house about the Steelers.
Oh, geez.
The Steelers lost, and I was in absolute crisis, sobbing hysterically that the Steelers had won until the day my Beckham died. And then they had won 11 games straight. And then Beckham died, and then they lost all of the rest of the games. And it was oh, this is my life. And, I think there's just things that make no sense. And your spouse is going to do things that make absolutely no sense. But it's purposeful. It means something to them. And if you don't communicate that, then it just seems sometimes outrageous. But it comes from a place of just not knowing how to grieve.
Yeah.
Talk about some of the angry outbursts as guys that we would have at random people on the street. As a relationship, we were fighting over stupid shit.
Hell yeah.
Now you're oh my God, it clearly was the grief and the sadness, but we're fighting over what restaurant to order from. It's
right.
It's crazy. So I want our listeners to know, we're saying this because I think what Jess said was important. It's a common, Lindsay and I.
It's so normal.
Yeah, and to the fine people at Uni, you guys, if you want to be a sponsor one day, you are welcome. Your pizzas are delicious.
We love your pizzas.
We figured out how to use it. It took a moment. But Jess, you're also being a little hard on yourself. As I've mentioned multiple times on the pod, both of our losses were in the heart of COVID, especially Beckham. So there was no escaping each other. which that was in and of itself was maddening for everybody. But there was no outlets, let alone on top of grief. And one thing that you were really good about, where again, you're being a little hard on yourself, is we did Friday date nights, and you were always really thoughtful about.
We did. We
like,
started doing
having
those.
something that wasn't just sitting down and watching old episodes of fucking Bar Rescue or something. It was an actual. You did a whole Disney day, like the whole. That's good cocktail shaking there, Brandon. Very nice. But pouring ourselves into some healthy outlets. They may not have felt, massive at the time, but in hindsight, those moments matter.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think
absolutely.
Taking a trip too, doing something like, I know Brian and I, we took a couple of trips and we were like, we just can't be in this space, like this physical space, like just get us out. There's just so much here. Everything I look at is a memory. And so, we would take, I remember we went to a Kelly Clarkson concert, and she, hey,
not complaining.
So good. Did you? Oh my gosh, Kelly Clarkson,
she's so good.
I told you,
so good.
So good.
Just like
so
just getting up and getting out and being in a different space, and it even opened us up for communicating in a different way, right?
Yeah, and we've heard it from our listeners. Like, how many guests did we interview when we asked them the stages after their loss? Like we heard a lot of Disney trips. We heard a lot of water park trips.
Oh yeah.
Not a lot of Kelly Clarkson concerts, but we'll lump you in there, bud. Joe B.
That was the first time I had worn mascara, because I thought I would go an hour without crying, which was major. But what was I thinking? It's Kelly Clarkson. Of course I'm going to cry.
Of course you're going to cry.
You're crying. You're crying for sure.
Yeah, I had mascara down to my chin.
Yep.
But it was still it was a great night.
What about you, Joe? What did you guys do to? Yeah.
The one thing I was gonna say was travel. Like the first couple weeks, you could barely wipe your ass and get off the couch, but it was about a month out, and we just randomly were like, let's go to Cincinnati.
That's
why not? I don't know. I don't even know why. Were the Beatles in Cincinnati?
There was no reason.
I don't
for the zoo.
But
no, we went for the zoo more so than anything.
And then I feel like that just felt good, so we just kept doing it. Then we came home and we were like, well, let's go camping and let's go here and let's go to Toronto and let's go. We just were gone. But the other thing that we spent, that we're still very heavily involved in, is our support group. We are so, I could talk for hours on this podcast about how unfair the treatment that people in our position get at different hospitals. We just lucked out. My doctor practiced at a hospital where they had an amazing grief counselor, and she has in turn trained all the nurses and doctors and every aspect of it. And we just lucked out. We came home with 100 pictures, professionally done, free pictures of the of Story, and all sorts of stuff that I now realized I just took for granted, I guess. There's so many parents that we talked to up here that went to a different hospital and they saw their baby for an hour, and that was the end of it. They don't have any counselors, they don't have any support group. So we lucked out in that way. And the grief counselor that we connected with has now just really become our friend. We're really close with her. And shout out to Amy.
Shout out to Amy.
We talk to her all the time. And we still faithfully go to support group every single month. And in those, that first year plus, it was just just something I had to do. I had to go. And I wanted to go more than it was even offered. And, now it's once a month, and we still go once a month, but it's an opportunity every single month where I get to tell somebody about Story who doesn't already know. Yeah. Because everybody in your life already knows about her. And then you're people stop asking, what's there to tell? I have no update, she didn't call me. So I keep, nobody wants to hear the same story over and over and over. So when I go to support group, there's always someone who has no idea who she is that I get to tell all about her. So support group was really great for us. It still is. I think Brandon was really good about letting me just like unload all of my feelings, but then he'd be like, okay. And I'm like, what is that? Like, okay, like, are you feeling the same? And like, he was good about listening, but not really like responding. And then I'd be like, that okay, and then
responding,
storm off the bed or something. But
can I interject on that? Going through support group and has helped me communicate a lot better from that point to now. Just on, I am a great soundboard when it comes to someone just venting off information. I'll listen, but now me communicating back is a lot better. Because I just be like, okay, kind words. All right, back to my show. Like that's just how I was. I'm taking everything in, and I
wanted to be more than heard, I guess, at the time.
Are you okay?
Like, I wanted something back, and so we were not on the same page.
Agreed.
With that for a while at the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, there were fights. There was arguments.
Yeah.
Like Brian said, for sure. I mean, everyone wasn't peaches and cream around here. So, I mean, we might feel like peaches and cream right now, but at that point, it was a wrap.
Sure as hell is. And is the peaches and cream a nice transition to our next topic here? And it's really weird with my sister on the podcast.
I'm
really weird with my sister on the podcast.
Dance with me. Dance with me.
You good, bud? You good? I was going to bust in some Marvin Gaye, but
I'm great.
you went the whole 112 route.
Oh.
No, I went real 112. Yeah, if you're gonna go, you're gonna go. If you're gonna go, you're gonna go.
There's no jagged edge, but anyways, but no,
bars. That's a whole other argument. By
jagged
the way.
edge bars. Okay, all right. Let's talk intimacy, people. One of the most difficult components of going through loss is finding yourself getting intimate again with your spouse. And this is a topic that I mean, Jess and I have talked about. I know all of you guys have talked about. Me, Brandon, and Brian have talked about. But we have not covered on the pod, actually. We've not talked about intimacy. And we said at the beginning, like, we're just going to be vulnerable and talk about this shit. Here's a real opportunity for us to talk about the difficulties of intimacy post-loss. And we don't need the details, but like, how did you get back to normal? Let's go there, right? Let's not start with Joellen.
I think this is going to be really different.
I'm going to go vomit for 12 minutes. Yeah,
well,
no.
Why not? Why not? Why not?
I think this is going to be very different for all of us because our losses were so different. And our circumstances were so different. I think it's going to be different for all of us.
So let's do this. Let's flip it a little bit here. Guys, let's start. Because we keep asking questions of the ladies.
I like that. I think that's a little bit
Sure,
easier transition.
no problem.
Brian, the thought of intimacy post-Austin, and how did you get to... You have two beautiful kids after, so clearly you tried again.
Yeah.
You made it.
Talk about that.
I promise. It was just too tough. No, but
her mom's not listening, bud. It's okay.
No, I think one huge major thought that I went through as a guy, and I think a lot of guys do, is like when you want to have that sort of like physical touch with your partner, and that knowing that they're sad, it's hard to like make that move again, where, prior, I think it was a lot more seamless, like there's signs, whether it's kissing or something, but I think afterwards I felt weird making the move, if that sounds, accurate or right. Like,
absolutely.
I didn't know like when to touch her, how that was going to feel. Like I'm super sensitive to body language, and it was really hard to get onto that point. And then obviously we had the discussion of do we want to have another kid? Are we ready for that? And that's a whole nother discussion we can talk about. But when we made the decision to do it, there was a point where it did feel like a job a little bit, like the intimacy of it and the fun of it was taken out a little bit, I think, because we wanted to have, at that point, we wanted to have another kid, and you're just focused on that. You know?
This we can all relate to, Brian.
Yes,
this
we're
all
on a
three of
schedule
us
here.
can relate to
Everyone's
very
on the clock.
strongly. It is a job. It is not even fun anymore because it's like we have to go right now.
Which, as
that's
men,
it.
is so simple to do, by the way. Like, oh, yeah, salute. Here we go.
That's tough for everybody.
No.
Brandon, your thoughts?
Yeah. Not fun. I think Brian and Jess took it like right out of the park on that. Like it, right after, you know, no lie, I let Joellen kind of like, whenever you're ready, let me know. And there was no conversation. Whenever you're ready, let me know. And like you said, like we said, like we went through the IVF process after having stories. So like it became your third job, like literally your third or fourth job. And all right, here we go.
Through into
All right, here we go.
That's gone.
Yeah,
that's
well,
out
yeah,
the
all right.
window.
Yeah, that's literally clocked out the window. You're absolutely correct. So that part, but I mean, we tried to, you know, spice it up, whatever, from there on too and stuff like that. But no, Brad, you can put your earphones back on. You're good, kid. Don't worry about it. And then no, but yeah, it became. We tried to spice it up, like you said, from that point over, but it just became a internship. Darn.
My biggest challenge. We're all incredibly blessed to be married to beautiful women, so like that part was not difficult. But like 0% of the time did life feel flirtatious or sexy, right? Like after loss.
Yes.
And again, you're in sweatpants 99% of the time, anyways, because it's COVID. Like you never even like.
I mean, I like barely showered.
Any of us did.
Let's be honest. Just barely showered.
I'm wearing paint-covered shorts as we speak, and this is years later, right? Like in the middle of COVID, it was. So you add that, and then loss, like, you know, just like the intimacy. Using that word, we're not just talking sex, but like intimacy, as you know, sort of that emotional connection and the flirtation and everything that builds to ultimately sex, was just gone. And where for years that was 0% of effort, right? Like that part took no effort to be attracted to, you know, get to that point. Now it took all the effort in the world, and that just felt like a car ride so far away that I could never get to it. It just felt right.
It was very
and
foreign.
So, talk on it.
I'm not gonna lie to you. That's you agree. Like I agree with you. Like I know during that moment, during that time of, you know, after I lost the story, I looked like a homeless man sitting on Genesee Street. My hair was horrible.
He grew it. He had hair.
Oh my gosh! I had the Willie way back. It was horrible. It was a mess. There's no cuteness. There was no cute. There was no like, hey there. No. You sit your old self down, Mr. Brandon Thurman, and you can just relax here and watch TV. Like
right after Story died,
it was
let's
horrible.
not forget I just had a C-section. So and you don't get to bring a baby home, but you still have a C-section and your milk comes in. So that's like really sexy when you don't have a baby to feed. And then you're like, oh my God, I'm going to like explode here. But on top of that, I still had a regular ass C-section. Like I still, you know, had all, I won't ruin everyone's ears, but all the things that come with having a C-section and all the supplies and all the things. And like, that's a long time just in that. So, you know, like that was a phase. Then there's the don't touch me phase, you know, like all of those. I actually don't even remember how long it could have possibly been. And nor did I actually care. Like it really was just kind of like, it was just you getting up.
It's a jagged edge. All right. So let's not try to put a timeline to it, because I don't think we want to put, you know, unrealistic pretenses around people that we can't even measure ourselves. But if we as a collective group of 3 strong married couples that obviously have gotten to that point, like what advice would we give to listeners of how do you get comfortable getting back to that point? Do we have a piece of advice? It's not like I got one up the sleeve that I'm waiting to lay on you. Lindsie, you look.
Yes.
Communication.
Lindsie, speak on the point. It looked like you had something.
Lindsie?
Oh, I mean, Brandon, you said it, communication. You know, I feel like there would be absolutely nothing physically happening if I didn't feel some sort of connection with Bri, and it all starts with communication, you know. Like there was a time like Joellen, you said the don't touch me time. I mean, that was there, and I so fully related to also the physicality of it. Like, you know, after Austin died, like I'd been breastfeeding him for the entire time that he was alive, and all of a sudden, you know, it's like just the physicality of it was it was so awful, and the grief also is so physical, right? Like I feel it physically weighing me down, and my stomach was constantly in knots. I was so physically in turmoil physically from the torture that I was going through,
like
that
ill.
Being physical with another person, like I wasn't even okay in my own body. And so being physical with another person was like, what? Like, no, it wasn't even a thought that was possible. But then it became something that had to happen because we wanted so badly to have another child, and not even another child. I wasn't even trying to have another child. I was trying to have Austin. There was a piece of me that felt, it's like, okay, if we can just get pregnant now, like we just had him. He was just here. If we can just get pregnant now, like maybe my body can make him again. Like maybe he would be reincarnated to us. Like maybe, you know, like who knows? I was questioning everything. Right. And so I thought maybe that we could do that. And so it became not about us physically connecting, which, you know, in the past it had, you know, been fun and light and brought us so much closer together. It was like, no, we need to do this for, you know, to bring him.
And I think from a guy's perspective, from my perspective in that moment, it's tough getting shot down. You know, like we all have needs, and I think as a guy, like,
and no one wants that. We don't want to shoot you guys down.
You know, it goes back to what we started in this episode. Like, we grieve in different ways. We have different perspectives on life in general. And I think when you're trying to get back to intimacy and you want to have sex, you're feeling it, and then you get shot down, and then it happens again the next day, you get shot down again. It's hard as a guy to be like, does she even like me anymore? Like, I had that thought.
I do.
When
we see that bed behind you guys. One other big piece for me from an intimacy perspective that I struggled with too is, you know, we've talked about on the pod where we feel like, we were just saying it earlier, where our wives are grieving, you know, such a significant part of the day. And you don't feel like you're seeing us grieve to the extent that you are. And then to come up to you and be like, hey, baby, it's sexy time. Like, that just felt like the most insensitive thing of all time, right? Like, and I'm saying that in a super...
I hope you're not saying that.
It is not.
I'm saying that in a super lighthearted way, obviously, for this. But, like, if you take it at the core of what I'm trying to say here is, you know, in your darkest hour, in the weeks and months following, and if you're already thinking that I'm not grieving to the extent that you want me to, if I'm now just putting sex back on the table, does that just exacerbate that perception that I've moved on type of thing? Like, and I struggled with that a lot.
Right. I'll say for us, we dove literally directly into IVF. You know, Beckham was a termination for medical reasons. And so we knew that we had to do IVF. There was the only way that we could grow our family. And I told myself that if we just dove into IVF and I got pregnant again, that was going to heal me. Newsflash, it didn't. And I don't think even if we had already here, it would have. I don't think that was the answer. But that's how I handled my grief for a good while, was I just dove into IVF and was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to put the family on my shoulders, and I'm going to make this baby, and it's going to be okay. But IVF and just general sexiness don't go together. IVF and trying to just have a normal, intimate relationship they're not compatible at all. At least in my perspective, and I know probably for Joellen and Brandon as well, and probably for most people that have done IVF, it is such a process and such a just absolute science that there's not even room for that. It's so meticulous and timed, and everything, it just has to go to perfection to even make said baby. You're pouring your entire being into making said baby, and all of your funds and your entire life into this, that there's just no, I mean, sexiness is just completely out the window at that point.
Yeah.
And for me, grieving and then throwing myself into IVF, it was like, good luck, Brad, because it's just not a place that I'm in. Yeah. And that took a lot of time.
I don't think any of us necessarily have like the perfect piece of advice here, but it's kind of trying to put a bow on this really fun conversation. Is it kind of, in what I'm hearing a little bit, is like finding our ways back to the depth of our emotional connection and just loving each other, and right. Parking the sexiness part of all of this to the side, and just communicating, reestablishing your healthy marriage and the pieces that you love about each other. Yeah. And then remembering you will find your way there. Other. Is that it?
Yeah. Yes.
And I think with me and Joellen, we went back to our pre-marriage days of just dating. Like, we just dated. Like, we became even closer best friends, bar none. Like, I'll put her up against anyone that knows anything about any hip hop. We debated about music, we debated about sports, we debated about clothes, we debated about everything. But like, that's how our friendship is. Like, we have debates, we talk about this show, we watch. We got locked in on Grey's Anatomy. Horrible show, by the way, if you're going through grief. Number one. But I love Grey's Anatomy. But we locked in on Grey's Anatomy. Also Chicago's and stuff like that. But like, that's what we did, and we became closer. Right, it is, and we became closer through that. Definitely so for me.
I love that you said little bow too, and Brandon, that you said it started like emotionally. Like, I love that, and it's so true. And just like, if I could put another little bow on it, for anyone who's listening, I would say that just to give the hope, right? Like, it does. It comes back. It
does.
Yeah, we're 4 years out now.
Absolutely.
And it's where at first it seemed impossible. It's wink, wink. We're
Let me just say that Brad and I are still in like a year out.
But,
so
wink, wink. We're okay.
We're still in the thick of it a little bit, but
I remember.
Right.
I think it was on the supporting your spouse G&G Q&A, Brian, where we said, it takes intention. Like, to be a supportive partner, you have to lean in, fellas, and like, you can't just expect your wife to come leaning in all the way. You have to do the same. And I think maybe intimacy is probably the same piece here. Like, it is a progress.
It's emotional connection, like you said, Brandon. Like, it takes talking. It's not like I can just rip off my clothes and walk into a room and she's gonna be like, all right, let's do it. Like,
I would.
It takes.
I don't know. I mean, I did it.
Each other again, and grief and intimacy. I'll take it a step further. What you said, Jess, like IVF and intimacy don't go well together. I don't think grief and intimacy go well together. And then you throw in living children with it.
You're right.
Well said. Well said.
You're right.
Really,
Yeah.
like you don't have any
Living children in general.
Good point.
Just in general, if you have a child,
this is a really good discussion we had. Let's move on to the next topic, Brad.
Yes.
Let's rapid fire a couple questions here. Let's give some, succinct thoughts because, just conscious of time here. And then we'll leave some bigger ones for the end. Yeah. All right. So quick one here, ladies. And quick, I mean, like give a minute or two, not a 30-second type of thing. A predominant emotion for men through this is anger. And we actually talk about that in a whole G&G Q&A. Do women feel anger to the same extent? And how does that affect your ability to grieve with your partner? Do you feel anger in the same way, Joe?
I wasn't angry in the same way. No, I felt very guilty. I felt very responsible. Like I should have known. I didn't feel, there was moments of it I was angry, of course, but like, I don't think I was as angry as Brandon. And I don't think he was even like super angry. But, I did have some of that during the grieving process. And like, sometimes it still comes back, but I can't say that I had a ton of anger. It was more a lot of like just guilt. I was going to say something else, and I forgot what I was going to say. So.
Oh, good.
Jess?
Yeah.
Jess?
I can speak for Lynn. She would get angry at this kind of the stuff we've said in other pods, like when people would say the wrong thing or be like insensitive.
Yeah.
Lynn's had no trouble telling them to go fuck themselves.
Yeah. I'm good at that too.
And especially, I talked about it on my emotions, but she had similar emotions where people did stupid shit, and that would be the anger I think she felt for the most part.
Yeah, especially anything along the lines of like, you need to move on. It was just like, oh no, move on.
Yeah, fuck that noise. Like, Lindsie, you were saying something before we started recording. What did somebody?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yes. So, all these assholes. So all
the fucking valet at Stanford Hospital. That poor guy.
He's probably listening.
He's like,
I'm so sorry. What is this? I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Lindsie, you had a really good point earlier before we started recording. Yeah.
So one of the things that people would say, people have such just beautiful little jewels they want to give you, right? Yes, just jewels, nuggets. And after we lost Austin, something that a lot of people would come up and say to us is like, oh my gosh, you lost a child. Do you know that 80% of people who lose a child get divorced?
Thanks, statistician.
Thank you.
Thank you
for that.
Thank you.
Oh, what a lovely, supportive thing to say. Out of all the things you could have chosen to say to me, that's the one you went with.
So here's the Tinder app. You should download this. Start swiping around. Yes, that's how Jessica and I met. So no hate on Tinder. Tinder, if you would also like to be a sponsor.
It
is. Jesus. These plugs here. Hey, hold on, Lynn. That might be a good topic there. No, jeez. Talking to divorced families during this process. That might work.
Season 2 cliffhanger right there.
Put it in the books.
Jess, how about anger?
Sorry,
Brian. I just want to just be real quick.
I was angry. I was angry at my body for giving my son a debilitating disease. I didn't do it. I didn't consciously do it, but my body did it. I was angry. So angry. At the same exact moment, I was so grateful that my body didn't give my living son that same disease.
Yeah.
It was a really weird juxtaposition.
Yeah.
Being unbearably angry, but at the same time, the most grateful you could possibly be was a really weird place to be in. And then literally 364 days later to be just the most angry a person can possibly be, to lose our baby girl for absolutely no reason. I'm still angry. I don't know if I'll ever be not angry about that. There's no reason. No one can tell me why that happened. But I'm working through it. And I think anger is a real piece to all this. I think it's relevant. I think it's warranted.
I don't know if that's
it may
true.
Not be the most healthy.
I think it's the most natural thing to feel through a lot of this is the anger of where we've been. And I think suppressing your anger is probably not healthy. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, no, you have to let it out. Like I feel
that's very true.
If you hold it in and you're not getting angry or telling people you're angry about certain things,
yes,
the anger is going to build up inside you.
And something also like just kind of realizing and hearing like you, Jess, you, Joellen, like it feels like for women, a lot of the time we feel such intense anger. Like to answer your question, Brad, like you guys feel angry. We feel so angry. But I think for women, our anger comes inward. We're angry at ourselves. I'm angry, so angry. Right.
Yes. We're supposed to be keeping these children safe.
That was my, it ate me alive, you know, like this was my job. This was my one thing. This is the one thing in life that mattered the most to me was keeping my children safe. And I always thought that if something was wrong, that I was going to be super mom and I was going to jump in, I was going to fix it. And, you know, so like, why didn't I know? Why didn't I save? Why couldn't I save him? Yeah. And so I think in having all of that anger, you know, directed at myself, something that I did realize that I think might be helpful for people was also to realize that I had to deal with it or else I couldn't go on living with it the way it was going to destroy me. It will potentially have destroyed our marriage. But I also realized that it couldn't all be Brian's responsibility to handle that, to break that down, to take it all. He couldn't take it all. And like in moments where we weren't necessarily communicating in the way that, you know, I personally needed at that time, I needed to find another place to go. And so and I think that was huge for my own healing, for keeping our connection, is connecting to other mothers who had lost a child and giving it to them. Like I needed to put it someplace else. And so, you know, by communicating to someone else besides Brian, I could help get that anger out, connect with someone who has been there as well. And then when I came home to Bri, I was in a much better place to do this together, if that makes sense.
I think that's so important, Lindsie, because I mean, once I started therapy and just talking to someone, that helped me so much be able to communicate to Brad. Right. I wasn't mad at him. He did nothing. Not one day been mad at him. I'm mad at the situation. Right. I'm mad at the situation and that's it. I'm mad at the situation and it's not,
yeah.
I don't know. It's not able to be understood, but it's just
so honest. Right.
That was so interesting. And just to kind of move on, transition to the next topic a little bit, I'm really interested to know from all the ladies, what was one thing that the three of us did that really helped you through your grief? So like, just tell us a story, or like in general, something that we did, whether it was dealing with family while you could grieve, or dealing with certain emotions that you didn't feel comfortable dealing with. Like what's something that our listeners could take away and say, maybe this is a good tip that I can help my spouse with?
Great question.
I feel like Brandon's pretty good with just like riding the wave, and he just kind of lets me, I don't know, like take the lead on things. So like if I was ready to do something, he was on board. If I wasn't ready to do something, he didn't push it. Like, he was able to, and he didn't like hide that, it's not like he waited for me to decide and was like, oh yeah, that's what I thought too. He's very much like, whatever you're ready, whatever you want to do. Do you want to travel? Do you want to stay home? That was very helpful to me. Almost all the time. Once in a while, I was like, make a fucking decision, but like for the most part, I felt like everything was so out of control. So I needed to control everything. And Brandon was really good about just letting me at least feel like I was in control of something, and for however long that took.
Beautiful point.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say, I'm so lucky. I feel like I have a really, really incredible guy, and I'm so grateful for you.
Yeah.
Brian took on a lot of it. He really did. And, looking back on it, now that I'm a little bit further out, I have the space to see it more. At the time, I don't know if I did. I'm not sure if I told you how much I appreciate you, but
you did.
I love you so much. And, I mean, he took on so much of it. We had, a couple, I'm just thinking about family members, who, there were just a couple of things that were said that I kind of heard in the wings, because Brian was the one to march out there and be like, nope, you're not going to say that to her. You're not going to go near her. Like, nope. I'm going to, he became the protector, and I don't know what I would have done, without that, you took on some of the, he made sure that whatever was coming through to me was going to add something, was going to add either peace or optimism or hope, and any of the ugly he stood in front of,
That's beautiful.
Yeah. And I'm just so lucky, that I had that.
Yeah. What about you, Jess?
I think I see a lot of what Olivia just said, and I think that we're still, for me, I'm still in it a little bit. It's been a year and just a little bit, so I'm still in it, and we're pushing through it. But it's been 2 years and 1 year, so we're not very far out yet. It's hard for me to see all of the brightness that has been shown to us in the last 2 years yet, but I know that I'm starting to, and that's very, gives me a lot of promise, a lot of hope, that we're getting to that place of normal again. We've accepted the fact that we're not going to have any more children, which is a whole other podcast, which is really fucking hard.
It's okay, babe.
That's that's something that we're accepting. And Brad has been so supportive of just trying to, I think, get me to a place of acceptance of that, because it's just the reality that we're dealt. And we've worked really hard to just stay open and keep the communication open, to be able to just talk through things and talk through how we're feeling. each day, and
yeah,
we've learned a lot over the last 2
well, I
years.
think we've honestly just scratched the surface of where this conversation could go. But maybe this is a continued conversation for season 2 and many seasons to go on. Ladies, we want to ask you one more question, and then fellas, we'll start to wrap. What's a piece of advice you would give grieving lost fathers to better understand or support their grieving spouse? Lindsie, I'll come to you.
Sure. So, I mean, and I know I feel like we've said it a bunch of times, and I think that's a great thing because it's so incredibly important, but just communication, just, listening and also sharing, right? Because we're on this journey together. Like, even if it looks different, we're on this journey together. And the only way I know that I got through it is in connecting, with Brian and, just being open and honest, and especially for the men out there who might be listening, like, don't shove your emotions down, right? That at the end of the day, the emotions are going to come out in one way or another, right? And so for the best way for them to come out is through just an honest conversation. Just share it, even if it's an ugly emotion. Just share it, and you can relate. You can grow through that. You can honestly grow closer together by putting it all out there. And in shoving it down, it's only going to keep you further apart. So I think that would be my piece of advice. Just put it out there. Just communicate it, and just be in it together. It's better than being alone.
Great point. What was it, fellas? Solitude is the enemy from Charles.
Yeah.
Absolutely right.
Yep. Solitude.
Joe, Jess, either one of you. What's a piece of advice you would give to guys in our situation?
I think Lindsie hit it right on the head. There's like the communication piece, and our perspectives are so different. I mean, just like allowing your partner to just be heard, but also don't tell me that I shouldn't feel guilty. Like, don't tell me how I should feel or that I didn't do anything wrong. And because that like rationally doesn't sit with me in that moment. Like, I should have known something was wrong. I should have been able to save her. And it just telling me that that's not the case makes me want to just like punch in the face, like just like listening to actually how I feel, and not trying to relate to it, but just, listen to it, and, have like something, like I said, we weren't good with was the two-way dialogue. Like, I was talking a lot, and, now we're a million times better than we were in that first few months. But just really like allowing your partner to communicate with you about how they're really feeling, and seeking support outside of your house if necessary.
Good point. Jess, take us home.
One thing I want to say to all the men out there is that hormones are real. And if your wife has lost a baby, within months of having that child, or is still carrying that child when she lost that child, hormones are real. And I know it's so hard for men to even begin to comprehend the gravity of those emotions or the hormones that are happening, but it's so real. And just try to ride that wave with your wife, and try to be as open and understanding as you can, because there's a beast inside of your wife that is not able to be tamed. And we're not trying to be mean. We're not trying to be as emotional as we are. It's something that is innate in us. And I think that's something that's hard for everyone to understand, women and men, is that, this thing has happened, and our body insane things, and it's really hard for everyone to navigate that. And then secondly, I'll just say that, echoing everybody else, communication is key, and being open and being vulnerable with your spouse and just letting everything out there to just be what it is and try not to seek perfection as I do every day. Perfection is our enemy as well as solitude. And just try to love each other and remember the love that you have for each other and let that carry you through.
I think it's so beautiful that we come back to this very fundamental and simplistic sort of core value of communication and everything. Yeah. But it sounds so simple in and of itself. Well, ladies, we are unbelievably grateful for you spending an hour and a half with us and your vulnerability. I know how raw and real these emotions are. And every time we talk in these forums, we open up those wounds a little bit, but maybe it's also we heal them a little bit more when we do them too. And so personally, I'm just so grateful for all of you beautiful women. I love you all with my whole heart. And I said on the very first episode that I'm not going to speak for Brian and Brandon, but I think in this moment, I'm kind of cool with it. Like how incredible you women are and how much we love all of you and your willingness to do this. Brian, Brandon.
We would not be the men that we are without you three women being our backbone, being our support system, being our ears, being our mouths, like being that person, that the people that you guys are. So I'm going to speak for all of us too and say that we love you guys all. We thank you guys for everything. We commend you guys on how strong you guys are to deal with everything that you have dealt with.
And all of our bullshit on top of it too. Thank you, ladies.
We love you.
Fellas, this wraps season 1. Holy shit. Damn. Thank you. It gives me chills thinking about it. And the only fitting way to do this is to speak our children's names. Brandon, do you want to start?
Astoria Lee Thurman. Me and your mom love you to death, and we will always love you. Mom?
Wait. No, this is Brandon. Love you, so.
Love you so. Beckham and Ariana, you have changed our lives forever, and you will always part of our family, a part of why we exist, part of why this podcast, the reason why this podcast exists. I love you and can't wait to meet you one day. And thank you to all of our listeners. We are so grateful for all of your support. This started as Brandon said, it started as a dream and a couple phone calls, and here we are 35 countries later, hundreds of listeners later. I never in a million years fathomed we'd be doing what we're doing. And I'm just so grateful for the 5 people that are standing beside me and doing this. And I love you all so much. Listeners, I love you in some way, shape, or form. Please come back and join us for season 2. Hit us up on all of our social channels. Love you, everyone. We'll talk to you soon.
Love you guys. Thanks.
Love you guys.